Welcome to UC Today with me, David Dungay. Today I'm joined by Estelle and Claire from Poly. Welcome to the show. How are you both?
Fantastic, thank you.
Great, thank you, David.
Great. Well, today it's a rather special day, International Women's Day. We're going to be talking about International Women's Day and particularly around inclusivity in the tech industry and what Poly are doing around this area as well. But before we get into that, should we do a few introductions? Estelle, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Poly?
Sure. So hi everybody, my name's Estelle Jackson. I am our Global Inclusion, Diversity, Education and Awareness Lead here at Poly, and I am responsible for fostering a culture that encourages collaboration and makes sure that every voice in our business is heard. So for me, that's about being authentically amazing. Poly as a business is the amalgamation of two companies coming together. We have Plantronics, who were the headset side of the business, and then we had Polycom, who were the video conferencing side of the business. And we brought those two together 4 years ago now, and we have grown into a unified communications business. We're about 6,500 employees over 47 countries. And we're very busy making sure that we have a built-in inclusion and collaboration experience for everybody who uses our technology.
And Claire?
Yes, and I'm Clare Tibbitts, and I lead the EMEA marketing function here at Poly. I started off my career just under 30 years ago in FMCG industry, working for Nestle or Nestle Roundtrees. Then I had a lucky move to the Middle East and a move into IT. And that's where for the past 25 years plus, I've enjoyed a very, very varied career.
Fantastic. So today I want to start with the topic of bias. We see this, all over the place. But I want to draw on some of your personal experiences around bias. Estelle, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown? How have you experienced this in the workplace, and particularly how has Poly sort of helped overcome this?
So Poly as a business are really bought into the idea of education and awareness. That's why our diversity, inclusion and equity program is called IDEA, right? Inclusion, diversity, education and awareness. We've run lots of surveys and asked our employees continuously what they want to learn about, what we need to give them more information on. And I then craft programs every quarter where we run all employee invitations, webinars. We have outside speakers come in and really give our employees the chance to down tools and educate and make themselves more aware of the world around them. We've run, recently we did an unconscious bias training with the Neuro Leadership Institute. So really the neuroscience behind the fact that unconscious bias can be just as painful as physical pain when somebody says something and really doesn't understand the impact of that. So we're really looking at pushing phrases within our business like we don't do that here. I think it's really important to point out that unconscious bias happens everywhere. If you're human, you have a bias. It's just the way we're written in. But if we're aware of that, we can absolutely drive making sure that we become more conscious about it. So, we hear a lot of unconscious bias around women, but I would say that actually we're just as focused on making sure that the men and anybody within our business feels included, right? So when we hear things like, are you babysitting your children? We hear a lot of conversations with our male allies who say things like, well, no, I'm not babysitting them, my children. So bias happens all over the place. It's not just a woman thing, but I think it's really important that we need to drive that culture of allyship and promoting that equity across our business. So that's the role that I play at Poly.
And Claire, can you draw on some of your personal experiences in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been really lucky to have spent the last 15 years of my career at Poly, where I haven't actually felt significant bias, but that wasn't the same as the early part of my career, when actually 3 years into a role, I was promoted and I actually had a team, and one of my team was a really fantastic product marketing manager, a man. And when it came to annual pay reviews, I gave him the maximum I could give him as a salary increase because he deserved it, done a really, really great job. But at the same time, I was expecting at this point to my salary to at least match, and it was considerably under his salary. And it wasn't. And it was at a time then that actually I had to go to HR and actually question this, and actually question, what, 27 years ago, is this a man-woman thing? It was actually addressed. It was actually addressed within 24 hours, and I had the biggest single percentage pay rise that I've had in my life. But I think that was really significant for me at the early start of my career, when I realized, my goodness, is this what it's about? There really is a significant difference.
Yeah, good. Well, it's challenges. We hear stories like this, up and down the industry. I mean, maybe Estelle, come to you. I mean, what's the one piece of advice, or the one thing you will encourage other people, be it women or others maybe, when it comes to addressing this?
I think for me, allyship is absolutely key. So making sure that you have that education and awareness piece, and that you grow allyship within your business. For me, I talk a lot with smaller businesses or companies that don't maybe have somebody like myself or an arm of the business dedicated to inclusion and diversity, around who is your only, right? Who is your only person of colour? Who is the only women in your team? Who is the only person who is in a wheelchair, or who has an invisible disability? And are you really leaning in and making sure that they feel included and that their voice is heard? For me, in terms of how you drive that change, it's being brave, it's being authentic, and for me, it's being the change you want to see. So one of the things that we've rolled out at Poly is a very powerful phrase. We don't do that here. And we encourage employees to use that phrase when they hear or see a behaviour that is not part of our culture. So I think that standing out and speaking up is becoming more and more important from a psychological safety point of view, as we see more people, hybrid working and returning to the office.
And Claire, how does this all relate to hybrid working today? What are you seeing on that front?
Well, hybrid working, again, is something that we're very, very familiar with at Poly. We used to call it smarter working, and that is, work is what you do, it's not a place you go to. And because we've always been surrounded by enabling technologies, you really could. So if I actually look back to my career 15, 16 years ago, I'd had my second daughter, and actually I couldn't work full time. It was actually just making me go crazy. And I actually had a very frank conversation with my manager, and I said, look, is there any chance I could actually work 4 days per week? You will not notice a difference. I know I can make this work. And I actually did. And it's because of the fact that we had this smarter working policy, where I really could choose where was the best place to me to perform and do the role that day. So that could be in an office, that could be in my home location, or it could be outside with suppliers, other vendors, customers, and that has been absolutely fantastic. So I think it's just making sure that we use the technology that is available. We train people up on the etiquette of that, because of course, if you are the only person external to a meeting where 10 people are sat around a boardroom, you have to be really, really conscious of that, and be aware and make sure that everybody's voice is heard wherever they are. So hybrid working isn't new for associates of Poly. It was just very, very strange when almost 2 years ago every single person was at home and we were all in exactly the same situation, dialing in like this, one meeting, but from 3 locations.
I think we've absolutely also looked at how we level the playing field, right? So when we talk about how that works, for example, I'm in the States right now. I have my children with me. We had an HR strategy meeting that my manager wanted me to attend, and I had to say, this is going to be difficult because of my children. And there was not one point where she said, okay, well, just don't come then. It was, right, how do we work this so that we can make this work? And, I'm not saying that's the ability that everybody can have, but the meeting was held and we had people dialing in from Asia and from Europe, and we were in the room, and we used that technology to run polls and quizzes, and using an interactive whiteboard, and making sure we used chat so that people could not talk over each other, and having speech to text there, so that people who English wasn't their first language, or they were tired, or it was late, don't put your camera on if you've got other things to do. Being mindful of what is going on in other people's worlds and using technology as the enabler is so incredibly powerful to making sure that people feel appreciated and belong in a business.
Is that quite a challenge as well? Do people realise that actually with the right technology, you can really solve a lot of these challenges and problems when it comes to hybrid working and promoting inclusivity?
I think we're really looking at how we work with our customers to help them find the best solutions for them. So, we want to be thought leaders. So we work very closely with our partners, our alliance partners, our customers. We ran a great event with Microsoft last year around accessibility and how companies can come together to build an inclusive collaboration experience. So, we were talking about Teams as the software, with Poly's video and hardware as the enabler to make sure that everybody, whether they're in the room or they're on video, has the same experience. And to be able to work with other companies and collaborate with them, not as competitors but absolutely as allies to each other, was really game changing for us. And I think that we also work closely with our customers with dialogue circles and forums where we say, tell us what we could do better, what isn't working, how do we iterate our products to make sure they work for as many people as possible, so that in the future we're not creating a product that works if you have a hearing aid, or we don't create specific tech for one group of people. We make products that just work for everyone, and that's kind of our mission.
I'd like to revisit the hiring talent and staff retention aspect of the conversation. Estelle, you mentioned a little bit around unconscious bias at the start of the conversation. There'll be a lot of people watching today's conversation and thinking, I wonder how I can tighten up some of my policies, or do a better job of this. What should people be thinking about around that, and what are Poly sort of instilling in the business when it comes to hiring people?
So we've been through a big transition in the last 18 months. So I worked very closely with our recruiting team around, what the skills of the future are and how we really want to be hiring for behaviour and skills rather than where somebody, say, went to school, right? You have an experience bias as a human where if you see that somebody went to the same school as you, then they will be as brilliant as you. It's hardwired into our brains. So we've not only worked with our hiring managers on the really pushing that to an awareness level, but also creating an interview bank of questions that our managers pick from, so that every person goes through the same interview process and is scored in the same way by a diverse interview panel. So we make sure that people are interviewed fairly and equitably, and also we look at our demographics, so we know what our gender balance is on a daily basis. We know where we need help. We are transparent with our employees and our leaders around how we can do better. And that really is making changes to our business across underrepresented minorities and gender and age and all of those other protected characteristics. So our employee resource groups really help us to challenge hiring in that mirror image. And we hold everybody accountable right from the minute they join in terms of this is our culture and this is the Poly way of interviewing. Claire, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on that.
Absolutely, because I realised while going through this training just how many rookie errors I may have done. And that is literally, when you're interviewing, you want people to be at ease, you want them to be able to perform at their best. So probably in the past, I really was looking at where we may have had a shared interest or something common ground, but actually that through the training you've realized actually that's really, really wrong. And we have hired some really good people in the past 2 years, so I think it has made a real difference.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's been great to talk to you both today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. The tech industry as a whole, we do need to become a little bit more inclusive across the board. And I hope people will be watching today and thinking how they can bring some of these principles into their own business. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Estelle and Claire for joining me. And I hope to catch up with you both soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. See you next time.